One of the things I love to do is to play board games. And while I don't have an opportunity to do so very often, nothing is better than a good game of chess. Something to challenge my mind. Rules, though, are vital. Have you ever played checkers with someone who knows the Hoff rule while you're playing the must-take rule? My name is Ian Currey and this is Thinking Out Loud. Come on, let me tell you what I think.
Check.
As a young boy, I used to make 8mm animated movies. There were Lego projects that built themselves, toys that ran as if by magic, and chess games that played themselves. Back in those days, I had to shoot a test reel, save up my pocket money, send it off for processing, save up some more money to buy more film, and so on. The process was both costly and time-consuming. The chess game was a favourite. The pieces proudly marched around the board before doing battle. All very clever, I must say. However, there was a problem. I managed to break the rules of the game. I was so busy working out how many frames I needed to shoot to make the motion keep time with the script that I failed to see that some of the chess moves were illegal. Oh no. Weeks and weeks of work to discover that I'd broken the rules and the movie was useless. These days, with all the video technology we have available, it's so easy to shoot such things that I can make things like that happen here in my tiny studio in no time at all. While technology, and especially animation techniques, have moved on considerably, the rules of the ancient game of chess have not changed at all. Another favourite game a few of you may know is Joker Marble. In the winter I sometimes make and sell a few boards and enjoy the creative process almost as much as playing the game itself. Being a little less well known, there are a number of variations in the rules. And when we get together with friends to play, we have to make sure we're all on the same page of rules, or one team will have a distinct advantage. We sometimes get quite competitive with such games, so it's important to know exactly what the parameters are. I mean, seriously, someone could get hurt. Back in ancient times, the same thing happened often. You've heard me tell the story of how the famous sailing ship, the Vasa, sank. And there's a link up here somewhere to that video in case you don't know what I'm talking about. And there are many other instances of trauma caused by people working to different standards than those around them. If you go even further back into history, you'll get to Moses and the famous 10 Commandments, rules for the game of life, as it were. Joker Marble has a rule that if you can't go, you can pick up a card and stow it instead of moving one of your marbles. Once you've done that 3 times, you get to go again, even if you don't have the right card to play. This is an addition to the rules. A good one. It speeds the game up and prevents deadlock. This rule reduces some of the chance within the game and increases strategy. And so for me, makes playing the game even more enjoyable. The rule has a good reason for being added. Mostly, it has little impact on the game, but on that rare occasion when things get stuck, well, then it's vital. Once the 10 Commandments became the order of the day, many religious leaders over the years have interpreted or added addendums to these rules. Whole chunks of the Old Testament document what the modified rules look like and how they were implemented. By the time Jesus came along, the rules had become so complicated that nobody really knew if they were breaking one or not. If you've watched a few of these videos, you'll have noticed by now how I often go back to the basic rules Jesus left us with of loving God and loving people. That's because Jesus himself was fed up with the addendums to the rules and the interpretations of the rules that so many of the religious leaders of the time had come up with. Jesus' core message was all about those following him having an uncomplicated way to live that would be much easier and away from the burdensome rules. Jesus said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest." Those rules were pretty heavy going, and I'm sure we've all been fed up with people telling us what we can and can't do to be a follower of Jesus. No? I know I have. Jesus goes on, "Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light." At about that time, Jesus was walking through some grain fields on the Sabbath. His disciples were hungry, so they began breaking off some heads of grain and eating them. But some of the Pharisees saw them do it and protested. "Look, your disciples are breaking the law by harvesting grain on the Sabbath." The commandment that had said, "Remember to keep the Sabbath holy," had been so added to that it had now been interpreted that you can't work on the Sabbath. And by logical extension, you can't harvest. And since technically plucking corn to chew could sort of kind of be defined as harvesting, the religious leaders had a gotcha moment. Oof, how silly. I've often wondered what's so unholy about working. But that's just me being all logical again, isn't it? The core rules had become so twisted and far from what they were intended to do. Well, in this case, provide a time each week to recharge spiritually and so on, that Jesus, who was the Son of God, remember, must have been thinking, what a bunch of numpties. My dad made these rules so these people could relax, and here they are, working up a lather about chewing a few ears of corn. I can see why the basics were summarized right down to love God, love people. It's sort of hard to mess those up, isn't it? I know people who still try, though. I mean, this person can't come in here because they've committed this or that kind of rule infringement. Nope, those people have to get their act together on this or that first. Jesus really was quite straightforward with it all, wasn't he? Recently, I heard one person say, "Well, that rule breaking is so far away from what God wants that, well, we can't let those people do that and still expect them to be accepted." It's not that hard, people. It really isn't. By the time Jesus came along, the rules Moses had, the simple 10, had been so messed up and added to that they were barely recognizable anymore. While we don't like people who play by different rules than ours, the ones we like, the two rules Jesus left us with superseded all of that. That love God, love people thing really doesn't need messing up. Instead of interpreting what love is and how not feeding someone is actually love, or not including people who think this or that way is teaching them a lesson that God will love them when they change, let's just keep it simple, shall we? And aside from liking walking through cornfields picking corn, especially on a lazy Sunday afternoon, I kind of like hanging out with strange people and telling them about my friend, Jesus. Go on, try it. You have to rub your hands together and blow, or the sharp bits get stuck in your teeth. Until next time, goodbye.